All right, thank you all. I am so excited to be here. Welcome to the Daily Jawn. We're going to be having an awesome conversation, and I'm going to do the proper introductions with bios. Okay, so Jeannine is the Climate Justice Program Manager at the Center of Cultural Power, who collaborates with BIPOC climate storytellers and movement groups working at the intersections of art, culture, and environmental justice. They are Filipino and Congolese artists, correct? Ranging from music production to sustainability design. Charlyn, yes, Charlyn examines communication between the dead, living, and yet to be born. They are a researcher, artist, activist, creating performance, objects, and imagery as rituals for strengthening the potency of Black and Indigenous memory and imagination. They are currently traveling throughout the Caribbean and the United Kingdom doing research on migration. Their abolitionist framework and specialization in community health, art, and education supports their emerging art practice. And most importantly, the reason why we're here is their new film, The Aunties. Woo. Yes, we can do a big round of applause because we will all be watching the short. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How does it feel? Woo! Right.
I think what's been coming up for me since probably this morning is a bit of a disembodiment because the work, and as you said, like my work examining afterlives, ancestral memory, futurity, is about imagination and it's about projecting. So my body is here right now, but I definitely have felt out of it as I'm like watching myself see our work, watching my wife and I's marriage and our union be mirrored by this elder couple. So I'm here and I'm everywhere. So I'm like, what do they say on the BlackStar album, reporting live from somewhere?
Yes.
Like, I'm everywhere right now.
How about you?
I can feel. I did not feel up until this point of release this afternoon. I think I'm really clear because I did this work with the Center for Cultural Power. As a senior program manager, I felt like it gave me a North Star.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Go Harriet. It really gave me a North Star to see the importance of why we uplift BIPOC voices within climate storytelling. Mm-hmm. And that gives purpose to my work. That gives purpose to being a producer. It gives purpose to the work that we do at the center in a way that really deepens what it looks like to invest in specifically gay, queer, LGBTQIA+, trans folks, yes. When it comes to storytelling and when it comes to documenting, ancestral stories, when it comes to documenting elder stories or seasoned citizen stories, as our aunties like to call it. I feel great about having a North Star, which means that there's more work to do because we got to get there.
Yes. Well, absolutely. When I first watched the film, I was so taken by Donna and Paulette. Like, they have such beautiful vibrancy. They have such conviction. And you feel it, and immediately you start watching and you see just like the energy that they have and the model they can be for us. One thing that I noticed was the quote that starts the film. I'm going to read it if you don't mind.
Please do.
It says, "Read my letter to my folks and give my love to them. Tell my brothers to be always watching unto prayer. And when the good old ship of Zion comes along, to be ready to step aboard." And that was a quote from Harriet Tubman, a letter that she wrote to her brothers. And that is what starts the film off. And in ways, it anchors the film. Can you tell me why you decided to use that?
when we filmed, we had so much of the aunties, and there's so many aunties in the story. My partner likes to say the land is an auntie, Harriet's our auntie, the tree where they prayed at, the witness tree, is an auntie. And Harriet needed to be a little bit more present. So we did all this Googling, research, and we ended up on this quote. And I think what really stuck out to me was when the good ship comes to Zion, that land is Zion to go take folks out of enslavement. So I think that really stuck out as we were thinking of how can we bring Harriet into this piece a little bit more. Because it's not necessarily about her specifically, it's about the aunties, but she's very much an auntie that led us to this moment.
Yeah.
I want to add a little something. So Jeannine actually found the quote, I believe it was a document in the Library of Congress.
Okay.
And I have a relationship with like the area archives and stuff in our region. And so I went first to the Charles L. Blockson, rest in peace, he just passed, archive at Temple. And I found one of the original editions of the book that passage is in, which is a larger volume about abolition at that time. And it contains letters that Harriet wrote and quotes from her. There's, her name is escaping me, a white woman abolitionist who wrote on her behalf and quoted her and kept documents of hers. And when I found it there, it sort of solidified for me what, she was bringing, because, she was offering it in our production, like, flow as a possible.
Google.
Yeah, as a possible, but I was like, I need to fact check this. I need to, like, go and find it. And one of the things I think about the quote that is really important as well is that line, when the good old ship of Zion comes along, that is a consecration. And so I think for me, the reason that line resonates so much is that letter was sent back to her family at Poplar Neck, and it states it specifically, at Poplar Neck, Caroline County, Maryland.
Wow.
And so what we'll come to understand with the film, and the film as it is right now is essentially a proof of concept for a feature length. So when we go deeper into the story, what we understand is that Mount Pleasant Acres Farms is at the intersection of Poplar Neck. It is right where that letter is talking about. We are very clear, and there are historians that have, verified this, but what is most verifiable and certified by the good Lord, in whatever name you call them, is that exactly the freedom dream that Harriet had is what's happening on that land to this day.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I think that's what, it hits so deep and on so many levels as you get to understand the story more about what they're up to there.
Yeah, so when we talk about that, throughout the short, all I kept thinking about is this intersection between freedom and the future, and how it's always working in the present, right? So the things that they're doing on their land is what Harriet and her family did on that land. They tilled the land, they took care of it, they made sure that people were sowing into good earth, right? So when you make this film, the short and then moving into a feature, how much are you thinking about preservation? How much are you thinking about legacy? And how significant are all those things weighing in the process when you decide who to put in, whether it's the aunties themselves or finding different, archival pieces? How are you putting this all together? Because it's so much. And as you said, it's a consecration. It's not this light thing. It's really heavy.
That's a really good question, and I think I had to contend with that as I was writing the screenplay, which essentially was, and this is for other film or filmmakers or artists that are considering filmmaking, because it was documentary. I wrote an audiovisual script, because I can't necessarily tell my subjects, what I want them to say, but it was based on stories that over the 6 years, 7, 8 years of relationship with Aunt Paulette and Aunt Donna, I pay attention to what the themes are and what they repeat, especially as elders. Like for me, there's a clue there. If you repeat it all the time, then it's something that I need to lock in time and make sure that like the next generation gets it. Because that's the only reason you're going to use repetition. You're programming me, right? And so we welcome all of that programming in such a way that, we had to make some decisions about not putting anyone else's point of view in that piece because it's so short. And Aunt Paulette and Aunt Donna have cultivated a particular way to talk about not freedom, but enslavement. And they take a very firm stance on the fact that we cannot continue to use the U.S. imperialist practice of talking about freedom, marketing freedom to people, and not addressing the condition of enslavement that we are every day having to resist against. So
you brought up the I know it just is like, it's so, because it is true. In the film, it's about 6 minutes, but you're hit with all these different notions of, as you said, freedom and liberation and how to take it out of theory and to put it into practice. And another thing that I was just really overwhelmed with was just the amount of love. And, being a well-read Black girl, I had to think about books that this was in conversation with and different authors. So I definitely thought of Bell Hooks, I thought of Toni Morrison, I thought of Jeannine Kayembe-Oro, but that at the end of the day, when I decided like which book I was going to carry to the festival with me, I ended up landing on pleasure activism, because there is, even in all the strife that is happening that you're witnessing, you also just witness the abundance of love and caregiving and this beautiful generosity that Donna and Paulette have with one another, and in essence with you all too, with the crew, right? Like they gave you so much of their time and their love to create something that would be long lasting. So I'm going to read a quote from the chapter on love as political resistance. We don't learn to love in a linear path from self to family to friends to spouse as we might have been taught. We learn to love by loving. We practice with each other, on ourselves, in all kinds of relationships. And so my question is, that practice, what do you think Donna and Paulette have to teach us about loving, and how can we sustain that love despite all the things that are thrown against us as Black people, as people of color?
Whoa.
It's a big question.
It's a big question, but I think I talked with you a little bit. The idea to bring this film in as a part of the Center for Cultural Power was to think about climate solutions. And seeing the story of their love and their life and how they preserve this ancestral land for all of us because of the work that Harriet did for all of us, as well as, Aunt Donna was in the service, Aunt Paulette being an educator, that's like community work for all of us. I saw love as a climate solution. And I know that's like a big thing to think about when we have fossil fuels and petrochemicals and colonization and cop cities and all of these different things. But to bring in the human experience to the climate crisis means to bring in some of these values around love, preservation, history, ancestral connection, which I feel like are going to lead us to the climate solutions, at least from what my aunties talk to me about and instill in me within repetition, and other elders that I've met and talked to on this path. I'm seeing that it is this humanization, this storytelling, this offer of love and time and care for each other that should translate to how we take care of the earth and land and plants and other, animal kin and things like that. So to say that love will cure the climate crisis is so big, but I do feel like the examples that they give us and the love that we see throughout this film, even when they're touching their hands and they're in the field, and you like, wow, that is what it takes.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to steward thousands of acres of land. That's what it takes to steward a 400-year-old tree so that our kids can visit it, their kids can visit it, y'all kids will visit it, and know that the prayers were laid there and Harriet stood there as a part of, again, solving another part of the climate crisis of ending enslavement for people that she loved. So I think, yes, love will save the planet.
Yes, I agree. Love will save the planet. So you brought up the tree, which I was completely like, after I watched, I went down this rabbit hole of trying to like find out more information about the witness tree. Can you tell folks more about that? And are there ways that we can support saving the land or like, you know, nourishing the witness tree? Like I felt like there was just so much history that I was unaware of, and I wanted to have more access and more knowledge. And in turn, I wanted to help Donna and Paulette. Like that was like, by the time I finished watching it, I was like, how can I help them? Do they want my help? Is there a picnic I could go to or cookout? Like that's what I wanted immediately. So how are the ways that we can learn more about just like the history and support them in their efforts?
Thank you for asking that. And it's so funny that you should mention a picnic. One, to segue from love as the solution, another aspect or element that the work that they've done in this place for decades, the stewardship of that tree, of the forest, the preservation of what was there when they arrived, and then the conservation of that, and then the preservation and cultivation of native grasses that were missing in that marsh. They've rebuilt the ecology there to be able to continue to hold life and love as they are defining it. And I think that speaks to a phrase that they're still grappling with, which is queerness.
Yeah.
Because they are gay women.
Yeah.
They are women-loving women.
Okay.
But we've talked with them about this expansive definition of queerness that we now use.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, we understand that it's reflected by the ecology of that space.
Yeah.
And that they have brought that and they have demanded that of themselves as farmers at a time when capitalism has encouraged farmers to monocrop and to simply farm for income, not for relationship, right? And so they've gone through so many phases with that land that what the offering has been since we've met them, we've been in relationship with them for almost a decade. And
Wait a second.
Yeah.
How did y'all meet?
we met as farmers.
Oh.
Jeannine and I met through like network and community here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then we reintroduced ourselves as farmers. We were both doing urban farming. She founded a farm here. I started an educational program at a farm. And we were both raised up in our young adult life by Black Panthers and that ideology of like self-sustaining practice, self-governance.
Yeah.
And, Black radical tradition brought us together.
Yeah.
And then we met the aunties.
Yeah.
Well, but it all ties in, right?
Yeah.
It ties in because the love that, Jeannine and I share and have been wanting to have cultivated, again, was absolutely reflected in this like, we're meeting through networks of Black farmers.
Yeah.
And we ask the question around, I say that to say, we have asked the question around like, what help do the aunties want? How involved do we get people? And I think that this is another sort of outward-facing commentary as a first-time filmmaker and as a niece, as like a professional niece. Don't tell all of the story when you tell people's stories in your documentaries. Some things are meant to be kept for the family and the legacy, because if we hyper-visibilize them, then what happens? We know too many, we've gone from 14% of the United States land ownership from Black people, from antebellum. We were chartering towns, okay? Our own ecumenical societies, churches, schools, to now 1% of land ownership here. That is obscene.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And every time we make choices about how we talk about helping or getting involved with people who have large projects like this, we have to consider, am I prepared to keep them safe? Am I prepared to protect them?
Yeah.
Am I prepared to be a steward?
Yeah.
So that has been a part of it definitely as well. And like, you know, we don't drop coordinates for just anybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's very basic pin drop on the map.
Yeah.
You know.
I did want to talk about the tree real quick because I know you want to talk about the tree. No, it's okay. No, I loved what you said. Thank you. I appreciate it. There actually is not that much on the tree.
No, there isn't.
Morgan State University did a study that I tried to dig for, and we have to ask one of our homies that's a farmer in Trinidad now where we might could find that. Okay. But it's really has been like word of mouth, hearing the stories.
I just put the study on the website.
Oh, you put the study on the website?
It.
Let's go. Well, yes. Bomb. It's a tulip poplar. Aunt Paulette once mentioned that it also might be the same poplar tree that Nina Simone sings about. Oh, wow. It's like the largest tree within 400-mile radius of that area. Okay. So, you know, as the word of mouth story is told, is that because it was so large, Harriet was able to pinpoint it on her way back. Yeah. And then, you know, they did their ritual, and it was like a marker for her. So as far as like stewarding the tree, you know, we always hug it and love on it and talk to it and bring homies when it's time and things like that. But it's definitely another auntie. And the fact that, you know, it holds all of those voices, those ring shouts, whatever they were doing around that tree at that time, just made it so important for us to catch. And actually, I was really sad we didn't get more tree footage. I wanted a whole drone for the, I wanted more tree, because there's no way within the film, within Imani's camera, that you could tell that, like, it really is this, massive, you know, beautiful, it's significant.
Yeah, it also feels like it could be its own character in the film. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's this thing that, like you said, it holds all this memory and energy directly from Harriet Tubman, like the stories, the songs, all the things that encountered, you know, we can't even imagine.
And Harriet Tubman's mom and father, because that's where her parents live, she actually lived 20 miles in Dorchester County. She used to walk to come see her family, and her dad was a logger. Oh, wow. So this tree was one tree that her dad did not turn into a ship or boat or, you know, whatever else they made out of wood in that time. Right. All the things.
I'm really curious to hear what's next, right? And I know we're showing the film today on Saturday. We're all going to be here. We're all going to be celebrating. But what does this look like as a feature, and what are your biggest dreams for it?
So there's two tracks that I'm running on right now as it relates to the feature. One is that there's some stuff that I can like do right now. And so in October, I conceptualized a gathering that would also be a shoot for the film, you know, like a particular scene that I have in mind, a gathering, a celebration. And as I was telling the aunties, and I'm like getting on the calendar, and they're like, well, actually, we want to have a festival. And it was a week apart. So I said, well, I'm going to move my event to your festival date, if that's okay. And she said, yeah. I said, who are you working with on the festival? She said, you. I said, okay, great. We're on the same path.
That's so sweet.
And I can't give all of the details, but what I will say is that one of the things that that festival is going to support is them being able to get a national parks designation as a part of the network to freedom as an Underground Railroad site. And that's very exciting. I just got chills and like I want to cry just thinking about it.
So beautiful.
And they deserve all of that. Like they deserve so much for the time that they've spent there, stewarding it for us.
Yeah.
And then the second track is it's a story called Cash.
Yes.
And it's called figuring out how to, be in community with other filmmakers, but also get with organizations that are meant to support this kind of work and say, hey, this is like a place where a lot of money has already been invested. A lot of life has been invested. So this isn't no fly-by-night type of film. This isn't just a novel idea. This must be made. So, I'm hoping to work with our production team. Anna here is the person that did our sound engineering, and we're so lucky to have our assistant director, Osli Dukan, in the festival this week, as well as Imani Dennison, who also has a film in the festival. And so we're going to be talking about, what it looks like to move forward. Maybe slowly, but certainly surely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know there are so many people that are watching and just because you can't help to fall in love with them. Like, I mean, immediately, there's the opening scene when she's, Donna's talking about what her parents taught her and her sisters, and her siblings, I should say. And that first note was, be true to yourself. And not only is this a story about climate change and love and abundance and honoring oneself, but being true, right? Like, it's just like they have such honesty, like radical honesty that they're practicing and teaching us. And I hope all of that is apparent as you guys continue to grow and build the film. I guess my last question is a little bit just out of nosiness, because I'm like, what do they think? Like, how do the aunties feel? Like, when they see themselves, when they attend the festival, like, what is like the first thought that they're thinking?
Well, if y'all come to the screening on Saturday, y'all might be able to just ask them personally. We're working on getting the aunties here for the screening on Saturday, so that'll be super exciting, and we'll be able to talk to them in here. But they are absolutely ecstatic. They are so tickled. Aunt Paulette was like, "Oh, honey, I'm on tour." Because we've been doing like a few private screenings with Black girl environmentalists, and they love it. They love having new nieces and nephews. They love expanding their family, their network. And
they did offer us the edits where they wanted them. They did.
Oh yeah, they offered they radical honesty. Okay, so they're very much like really on top of like how they want to be presented, what they want to say, how they want to be shown. It's very important for them to be intentional, and I think that's a little bit about the future too, is we'll get to hopefully see a little bit more into their large life of how they came to be in this moment, and just so open to, again, all their nieces and nephews, and how we are just there with them, throughout their growth.
The symbiosis, because it's definitely an ecology in itself. The network of nieces, nephews, them fuse. Like, we got to come up with another phrase, because I'd be like, auntie, they, please, thank you. But yeah, we're an ecology in our, in ourselves, with all the talents and hopes and ideas and futures.
It's such a beautiful collective and I mean, amazing example of community and what can happen when people just love on each other and love each other hard, Like, it's really beautiful. I can't wait to see what's next. I also have to, again, another like basic question I should have maybe asked at the top, but the title. How did you land on
I
Aunties?
remember, yeah.
So the entire network of nieces and nephews, and when I say network, I mean there's thousands of us all around the world because they've lived internationally. Aunt Paulette became a traveling educator when they decided to join, and she traveled throughout Aunt Donna's military career. So, I mean, she brought
together 50 years.
50 years
Yeah,
next year.
74.
Okay? So the network is massive, and everyone just says, the aunties. If we need to speak specifically about them, they have their names, of course, but it's, are you going to the aunties? Oh, we just saw the aunties. Who's the next person going down to the aunties?
And this is before
Can
the internet.
Yes, child. Very much. And it's, for us, I think, you brought this up when we were chatting before about the mixed bag of like the idea of auntie.
Yeah.
For us, auntie is an honorific.
Yeah.
You know, it is Dr. Esquire Auntie.
Yep.
And
I
so
love
we
that.
take it seriously. And Auntie is about a stewardship.
Yep.
It's a stewardship of the wellness of an ecology, of a person, of a life, of a constellation. You know what I mean? So it's their title. It was their title. It was always their title.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So they received that 100%.
They receive it, and that's how they introduce themselves. We met them, and they said, "We're your aunties, Paulette and Donna." And I will say they're women that do not have children of their own, and many of us who are in their family and their net are also parentless, or in whatever particular phase or configuration of family unit. And so they very much fill a place in all of our lives as well.
It's so beautiful. I just feel like there needs to be more spaces that can be that warm and welcoming and, quite honestly, transformative. It just sounds, anytime you mention their names, there's like a glow that comes from both of you and just like a warm acceptance. And I know that when folks watch the short, they'll feel that energy. And as you build and continue to grow this amazing project, all the things that you need will be like given onto you, because it's a prayer. Really,
Ashe.
Yeah, ashe.
Call that
Seriously.
into the space.
Yes, receive. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about or would like folks to know?
I would just say, we have a website for them. It's theaunties.farm.
Okay.
Their email is theauntiesfarm@gmail. I monitor it because they, one day to the next, can't get into their internet connection. So, but October 14th feels like a firm date for when this convening is going to happen.
I'm coming.
And the concept from my part is we will be elders.
Yeah.
And I would love for us, intergenerationally to kind of descend upon this place, to consecrate it as a land and a space and a moment in time where we all declare that no matter what we are going through in our lives, no matter what we are contending with because of all of these forms of oppression that kind of cycle and surface, we will be elders too.
Yeah.
And it's a demand. It's a demand, and it's okay for us to make that demand of this world, that we will be elders as well.
Yes. And we deserve to take up that space.
Follow the Aunties Film at Instagram.
Yes.
This little practical thing. Aunties Film on Instagram.
Yes. We need all your likes. Are there any questions from the audience?
You mentioned this large network of nephews and cousins. Have they seen the film? I'm curious about how this film is going to connect with that network. I love the idea of this massive community of chosen family that they've amassed.
Yeah, some folks have. We've been sending the link out over the last, when did we finish?
It's a year.
We've had it complete for a year? All right. So we've been sending the link out, to folks, and the trailer. And the idea is that convenings moving forward would be opportunities for folks to tell their stories. I've been trying to use a Google form to get people to drop their names and check in. Have you been to the farm? Have the aunties impacted you? Drop a story here. But, we'll get more sophisticated and more clear about how we're gonna gather stories as we go on. I think we needed to make sure that this was in the world in a way that could show us that people were interested outside of the network also. Because a lot of that network are people that are living very similar to the Aunties, which is in land stewardship, in relationship with spaces that require 100% of their time and attention because it's, sort of tenuous. Land is tenuous. So we're definitely engaging with the network. And this coming weekend, we're actually going to get to spend a day with their network. They call Some of This, Some of That, and it's the network of their brothers and sisters that they came up with very gaily
in the life, honey, in the 70s.
Their family, family.
The family.
So we're going to be able to meet those folks too, and we hope that all of that will be a part of this chronicle.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. It's a big film, y'all.
That's much more than I hoped for. That's a great answer.
So good.
It feels like very organic. I mean, impact is typically how we term that, but that just feels like very sort of, I'd elevate it to communing with the film and with the participants. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
love that too.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Oh,
You have
okay,
one
we-
more question?
Yes.
Hi. I'd just really like to know what the process of co-directing this film was like. Because I feel like directing is such a personal thing, being the chief storyteller of a project and being so personal. How did you guys balance that? Did it come naturally to you? Did you know you always wanted to co-direct it? Trusting each other? I just would like to know a bit more about that process.
Yeah, especially because of being wives.
I've been trained as a producer from a really young person. So the producing part, getting people together, getting the crew together was, that part was easy, right? And I did want to say that the crew, as far as cinematographer, assistant director, the stills photographer, everyone was Black and queer. And that was very intentional. So it created an ecosystem for us where familial organizing.
Yes. Very familial communication. Can you go get her? Yeah.
So there were times where it was I was so into this photograph, with Aunt Donna on the tractor. But then Charlyn was with Aunt Paulette talking about pears and native species. And it was okay. And Imani was okay, who's directing this? And we were okay, we both directing. So it kind of came to that moment during the production itself.
Like this. and like this.
And what an amazing way to build communication skills with someone that you love. Sometimes folks are fighting over laundry and toilet paper, and we're just no, who's gonna get this shot? You know what I mean? So I do feel it definitely helped us grow in so many ways around exactly, partnership, creativity, all of these different things that because we're both artists, we're growing on individually. But to do it together is something I feel I've definitely always fantasized about and just loved having someone who can be a creative partner in this way. So I hope that answers a little bit of your question, but definitely hard. And at the same time, what does Abraham Hicks say? Contrast contours. and it like shapes the vision and it makes it what it is. I don't think without the love that we expressed and the arguments we had and the times we agreed and all of those things, that was a part of the love that you all get to see on screen that our aunties show us. Because they was having talks, we were having talks, we was having talks with them. It was a lot of processing happening as queer relationships do tend to happen.
And I will say that the co-directing when you're making a documentary, I don't know if anyone has said this before, so pardon me if it's a concept that everyone's familiar with, but your subjects are actually co-directing with you.
Yeah.
Because there was no way. You know, I had to ask Aunt Paulette to say something 36 times because it was a point that I knew she wanted to make, but she kept telling us stories about 1974. And I was like, Auntie, please just say this, come on. But she wanted us to understand, you know what, I'm tired of talking about this thing that we already know you know. There's something else there's a secret here. So they co-directed with us as well, and I think that what I brought, I think what Jeannine, can I speak on can I talk about what I think of you?
Of course.
Okay, so I think what my wife often brings is she's so nice, and she's so tender, and able to really massage the moment. And I am very direct. So as she's massaging, I'm saying, you need to do this now because the sun is going down. We're gonna miss this amazing shot because you look gorgeous. So come on. So we did a lot of volleying that back and forth. I know you think I always be like, you soft, why are you acting like that? Just say it. But I do see it as valuable.
Thank you.
And this is what has grown from co-directing. Just being able to value each other in these ways because we see the end result. And so we don't have to be so scared. Like the fear of watching someone be who they are and like being scared that what needs to happen is not gonna happen. We've been able to like really breathe into, also trust with our team. So I think trust and like opening oneself to like possibility is so at the center of like taking on co-directorship.
And thank you, Oslie,
God,
too,
that's so
for being
beautiful.
there with us,
That is so
keeping us on
beautiful.
task.
I mean, I don't got nothing else to say. That was really beautiful. I just think I'm really excited for it to continue to grow and flourish and to witness it and help where we all can. I feel very proud of you. And we just met, you know? But I just feel like this intense amount of just like pride that this is happening. And not only is it happening, but it's in such a powerful and just like life-changing way. So congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you
y'all
for
so much.
having
And
us.
thank y'all for being a witness with us today.